This is SK, who got her name from her fantastic ability to escape. Here she is pulling the stunt off in her old tank, and this is when I realized she needed a new tank. So I definitely lucked out when I saw this guy on Facebook Marketplace, and I bought him pretty quick. And I didn't want her to just be in a plain tank, not when she has super climbing abilities. So that's when I decided she was gonna get a DIY rock background. So I watched as many YouTube videos as I could, I did as much research on the tools that I needed, and I was ready to begin. This is SK trying to escape, but I closed the gap so she couldn't. So now we're just gonna go over what we need to construct this. So now we needed installation foam board, and I only needed one. You might need more than one. They're quite large. Next, I highly suggest a foam cutting tool because it is really difficult to do it without it. So I got this on Amazon. I will link it. The next item you're gonna need is grout. It doesn't need to be sanded, but if you have a preference and want sanded, go ahead and get sanded. This part is super important. Make sure you get a very, very cheap brush. If you don't get a cheap brush, you're going to ruin one of your nice brushes on the stupid grout. Next, you're going to need liquid nails if you're going to be gluing any of your pieces into your tank. This stuff is great. Next, you're going to need dry lock, and you're going to want to get the original. All the other kinds, the extremes, the clear, they are not safe for your animal. You can use them, but per the manufacturer, only the original is safe for your reptiles. Next, if it's in your designs, you're going to want to get canned foam. This is the stuff I used, and I thought it worked well. Now you're going to want to get some paints. Doesn't matter what kind, as long as they say non-toxic. That's why I went with this brand here. And then just get the colors of whatever color scheme you're going. So now that we've acquired everything that we need, we can begin. So this is just me taking my insulation foam and cutting it with a foam cutter. I got it off Amazon. I can link it in the description, but it made things a million times easier than they would have been if I was trying to do that with a knife. So I definitely suggest a foam cutter. Alright, so this is just all the pieces after I cut them. I did not film myself cutting all of them because it was a lot of video I didn't think you guys wanted to watch, but this is kind of just the basic outline, just making sure everything fits. At this point I was ready to start grouting. This is the grout that I used. It's sanded, and I mixed it to a very, very thin consistency for the first layer. Now this is me just painting on that thin layer. It was a little difficult because it got everywhere. If you're going to use your brush is going to be ruined. So don't use your favorite brush. This is them just after the first coat. Now they're drying. You want to make sure they're like completely dry before you do your second coat. Now I did do 3 total coats, but I don't have any film of the third one because doing this and filming was like a lot more work than I really wanted to do. So you need 3 coats, a light coat and then 2 thicker coats so that you have something that's really solid. This is me once again just putting them in and seeing where they're gonna go, because you don't want to like be done with this and get ready to glue it in and they don't fit, so you need to constantly check that. So I thought that dry lock was clear, and so I went ahead and painted some of these pieces, but it's not. It's white. This is the one that you're supposed to use for animals. It said it's safe. You're going to want to do 3 coats. I don't film all 3 coats, but you want to do 3 thick coats. Okay, so now I'm done, and I've glued them in with liquid nails. I have painted them as well. My last coat of the dry lock, I mixed my paint with the dry lock. I used acrylic paint. So I used liquid nails for this part, and it worked perfectly. I mean, you put it in there and it sets right away. And so next I'm going to do the great stuff, and that's what I'm going to do. Alright, so now I'm going in with the installation foam, and you do not need to put as much as I put. I put way too much, and it really got thick. You don't want to, you don't have to be meticulous with it. It does expand. I needed about 4 to 5 cans to complete this entire piece. And as you see, I'm going way lighter on this part because I realized my mistake. Before you flip to the other side, wait 24 hours. You'll see why later. So here I am cutting. I actually managed to cut my finger in this video. You don't see it because it's so fast, but I just wasn't being careful. So if you're going in and cutting this, you do not put your left hand up where your right hand is, or you're going to give yourself a nasty... I think I did it right there. And so I went, and now you see I'm not using my left hand anymore. I really got a good cut from that razor. But here I'm just cutting it out, and honestly, this was my least favorite part of the entire thing. My arm was tired, it was really awkward to cut. I probably should have used my foam cutter at this point, but I was inside and I didn't want to smell the fumes. But yeah, definitely this, and then my knife broke, so this part was really just not my favorite. Alright, so this is where we're going to learn why you have to wait the full 24 hours. As you see, I just have a giant hole because it decided when I flipped it over that it was going to create a gap. So you definitely want to wait the full 24 hours. Wait until it's dry to flip the tank over, or you're going to have the same problem. I did end up filling it up. I had a little bit left, and I did a really thin coat, but it definitely was just kind of an unfortunate situation there. Okay, so here I've started grouting, and honestly it was really drippy because this is a very thin coat. And so it was kind of difficult to kind of paintbrush on because it dripped everywhere and your arm just gets super tiring. So you definitely get a little bit frustrated during this part. This is just after it's been one coat, super thin, you see all those holes. Now I'm going in and I'm dry locking, and as you can see I have a mask on because I'm inside and the fumes are pretty bad. And I decided to do one coat of grout, and that was a mistake, as you'll see. Dry lock does not fill those holes, so if you have holes, you need to have more grout. So I had only gotten one can of dry lock, and you'll see that wasn't enough just because of the mistakes that I made that I'll go over a bit. But I ended up finishing this side, the back side and the left side, and I decided, nope, we're going to go in and we're going to grout again. So here I am. I've already grouted a little bit, and I decided I'd go over kind of what I did. I put this off for a couple days because I was pretty frustrated, and so what I ended up doing is, you can see all these holes. I just thought, how in the world am I going to paintbrush these on? And so I took the tank and I put it on its back. And so I took this jar that I'll probably show in a... Yep. I took this jar and I mixed the grout up in the jar, and then I just poured it directly over and I just filled those holes. And that made it so I didn't waste my trash can, and I just... so much easier. So much. So at this point I worked side by side. I worked on one side and then I moved to the next side. So what I did is I took this back side, I grouted it. After I was done and that was completely dry, I then dry locked it. And so that's what I'm doing here, is I'm dry locking it, and both of the sides right now have not been grouted, but I just decided that I was just super tired of the flipping of the tank and all this, so I was just going to finish one side and then I do the other side. And so you see that it has a tint. That's because I added acrylic paint to the dry lock in this situation. And at this point I was really pleased because, as you can see, there's no holes and it actually looks like a rock. Make sure you are doing 3 coats of dry lock. That's very important. So this is the flipping that I was talking about. Now I'm working what I think is on the left side of the tank, and I'm mixing up my grout, I'm pouring it in. And I mean, each one of these sides I had to wait a full day for the grout to dry, I had to wait a full day for the dry lock to dry. So each side took me about 2 days, 3 days. Alright, so now I'm just painting. As you can see, there's dirt on the ground. That's because one side I decided to dry lock and immediately put dirt on it, because I had seen a couple of people do that and I just kind of wanted to see what that would look like. I didn't love it. Honestly, this rock looks so crazy when I first start doing it because I kept running out of paints. So I'd have to like take my like light brown and mix it with black, and so it definitely looks weird right now. And I definitely realized that the pieces that I did, I should not have grouted and I should not have dry locked. I should have stuck in there with the canned foam and done them all at once. I definitely wasted a lot of materials by doing them one at a time, but I didn't realize I was going to do a full background until I did. So at this point you might be thinking, that rock looks like poo-poo. That rock looks weird. And that was my thoughts too, but when I tell you that the final like reveal is, it really is pretty awesome. So it already looks better. It just had to dry. But here is where the rock came to life. I mean, a lot of people are like, oh, I don't know how to make it. All you have to do is paint the rock as dark as you can and then add these highlights. That's really all you have to do. I mean, it just completely, like the entire process, you're like, this doesn't look good, this doesn't look good, and then bam, you add those highlights and it looks amazing. So here's the final reveal, and honestly I was really pleased with it. Just taking back to that, really have a plan before you start and label your steps as well as you can. Here it is with kind of the stuff that I put in it. And I did let it dry out for a week before I put my leopard gecko into it. And then there's that side with the dirt. I didn't really show much of that side because I was so pleased with look at the rock. I mean, I really thought that it does look like rock. And there it is. That is my fake rock background DIY.